Coming up on Small Town Big Deal, old things made new.
It's wildly more popular than you might think, and it's big business for this small town hardware store.
And we learn about the culture that never stopped living that simpler life.
And exactly how big does a barn need to be to hold a lifetime of memories? This Illinois farmer found out.
Welcome to Small Town Big Deal. I'm Rodney Miller.
And I'm Jan Carl. You know, the village of Dalton, Ohio is known as the gateway to Amish country here.
But since 1955, one spot in town has been capturing the attention of people from across the world.
All right, come on in. Welcome to Layman's.
Oh, wow.
A step into Layman's is a step back to a simpler time.
If you have to push it, pull it, pump it, crank it, or stoke it, you can probably buy it here.
There's a lot of unique stuff here that you can't get anywhere else.
I like to stop in, look around, and see the variety of the equipment and machinery that's on display.
By the way, do either of you know what that is?
Oh, gee.
Oh, yeah. It's a threshing machine.
You're right. It is kind of an old-fashioned combine.
Yeah.
An Amishman rolled it in here and asked us if we wanted to buy it, and my father, being my father, said sure.
Layman's is actually located in the tiny hamlet of Kidron, Ohio, just outside Dalton and about 25 miles west of Canton.
Over 60 years have passed since Jay Lehman started his little hardware store. Since then, it's grown and grown into this 35,000 square foot compound that on a good day will host more than 4,000 shoppers.
Jay, did you ever think it would evolve into something like this?
I had no idea it would, no. All I was trying to do was serve the local people, which at that time was primarily the Amish people. So I sold a lot of non-electric things. Gas engines, washers, kerosene refrigerators.
You heard right. There are refrigerators that run on kerosene or propane gas instead of electricity.
A lot of missionaries use them if they're in remote areas.
Sure.
People have cabins where there's no electricity.
Jay is now in his 90s, so he's turned over most of the day-to-day operations to his daughter Glenda and son Galen.
Layman's motto is, for the simpler life. And they're amazed at how many people want to unplug, literally.
This is really what we're known for, is non-electric heating and cooking. The wood heating stove is designed to heat your home. Some of them you can cook on, but you never cook in them. A wood cook stove you can cook on, but you can also cook in.
They even offer classes to teach folks how to use them.
Maybe you want to teach your children there's a different way to do things. There's a whole plethora of emotions and feelings around cooking and eating together that we've kind of lost in our busy world.
Jay has restored a number of beautiful classic old stoves to mint condition, but those are just for display. Everything Layman sells is brand new.
Jay's commitment to serving the folks in his community has put him in the right place at the perfect time twice.
Back in the 1970s, when there was an oil embargo, people were so worried they bought everything Jay had for living off the grid. Layman's quickly became known around the world, and now they have a catalog and online business to prove it.
And then the next big jump was Y2K. We call it the biggest thing that never happened.
Yeah.
Yeah.
1999, January 1st, nothing happened.
But something is happening in the kitchen area of Layman's. Something really good.
A demonstration of do-it-yourself applesauce.
All right, so first you cook the apples until they're soft and you can keep in the centers.
Oh.
This machine takes it all out.
Wait, you keep the core in there?
Yep, then you get a scoop of them and put it in this machine.
Well, that's just everything.
And you plunge it down and turn the handle. And as you see, all the applesauce comes here and all the junk comes out here. Like all the cords.
Separates
So the core and
it.
everything comes out here anyway. So just the good stuff comes out here.
Yep.
So then you just turn this. And
Yep.
It just keeps.
And push it down.
Oh,
It's pretty good.
that's like candy.
As it turns out, preparing food the old-fashioned way is kind of a big deal at Lehman's. They've got everything to cook on or in or with, and as Rodney found out, they have samples.
Could I get a sample of the peanut butter fudge?
Yes, sir.
Come and get it. I've lost Rodney again.
Attention Lehman's customers, I have 2 words.
Goat yoga.
Hey, Lehman's is all about relaxing and slowing down, right? So on occasion, they pitch a tent out front and bring in the goats.
It's chaotic.
So this is officially goat yoga.
Yeah, okay, wait, can I let go?
I've never even done regular yoga.
It's a light exercise. It's more of a stretch.
Yeah.
And then the goats bring in the comical relief of
Yeah.
the actual yoga class.
I need comical relief when I do any kind of exercise.
I'm not sure what the advantage is here, but okay. Okay, that's kind of fun, but I don't get it.
They did fantastic. They were naturals.
Okay, don't go away. We'll be right back.
When we come back, more of the truly unique items at Lehman's, including unbelievable 3D wood carvings.
And the Amish, a closer look at the centuries-old culture that made all this possible.
So you could call this the Sistine Chapel for Amish and Mennonite people.
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal from Lehman's Hardware in Kidron, Ohio, a hidden gem that sells to customers all over the world.
As we mentioned, this enormous store was anything but when Jay Lehman started it back in 1955.
Everyone thought Jay had lost his mind when he decided to forego the latest and greatest to sell the old and obsolete.
Everyone except the Amish.
A lot of the customers we have now, of course, just found us recently, but the Amish were with us right from day one.
In the early days, almost 90% of Jay's sales were to his Amish neighbors.
And they couldn't find things other places. We would get it for them. Yeah. We would spend a lot of time trying to find things, and I think they remembered that. I like to treat them like I would want to be treated.
Sure.
Nowadays, Lehman's doesn't just sell to Amish, they also sell from Amish.
Between the retail store and the online store, they stock nearly 50 items made by Amish craftsmen.
On Saturdays, visitors can take a ride in an actual Amish buggy with an actual Amish driver.
And today, Roman even let me drive.
Okay, so what do you want? How should I?
Well, just keep going, and then if you want to turn, you got to pull here, and that's for left, and that's right.
Okay.
And on display are some of the most incredible wood carvings we've ever seen.
It draws them back into time when you were plowing with horses and had a couple cows in the barn, and that's what I like to carve.
Paul Weaver is a true Amish artist. For 28 years, he's been carving solid blocks of butternut wood into amazing three-dimensional scenes of rural life.
I believe it's a God-given talent, you know, because it's something a lot of other people don't have. I still say one of the most important things is just patience.
I bet.
Throw the phone in the waste can and carve.
Paul takes anywhere from 3 months to a year to complete one carving. To find out more about Amish culture, we visited the nearby Amish Mennonite Heritage Center.
The Amish are a religious subculture within a greater American Christian and American culture. They make choices to live in a little different way than many people do.
It was interesting for me to learn that the most important things for the Amish are church, family, and community. Anything that detracts from that is a non-necessity.
Their argument is, if we permit ownership of cars, in the evening we'll get home, mom will go one way, dad will go the other way, and the kids will go another way.
The Amish are brilliant farmers, craftsmen, and businessmen. The community here is one of the nation's largest producers of hardwood furniture.
They do it all without electricity and with a formal education that usually doesn't go beyond the 8th grade.
But then you're expected to spend the next few years learning a trade, and you learn how to function in this world and take care of your own family.
But when their formal education ends, learning does not. With no TV or internet to distract, the Amish become voracious readers, and most continue that passion for life.
The Heritage Center has a library of historic Amish books, some centuries old, written in their native German language.
But the highlight of the History Center tour is the cyclorama entitled Behalt, which means to keep or remember. This painting is 10 feet tall, 260 feet long, and took 14 years to complete.
So this depicts the history of the Christian church up to here, and then from here on out, from the Amish and Mennonite, what we would call Anabaptist. It isn't anti-Baptist, but Anabaptist, which means rebaptizers.
The Amish and Mennonites of today are descendants of the Anabaptists, a group who broke away from the state church in the early 1500s.
They called for a free church, a church separated from any political entity, and for that they were persecuted.
The Anabaptists, like so many others, would eventually immigrate to the New World in search of freedom.
The artist who painted this amazing scene, Hans Gogol, was himself a German immigrant.
He was so impressed by their history, he decided it had to be preserved. The Behalt is a mix of art, history, and inspiration that encompasses more than 1,200 historical figures.
People often walk into the room and say, wow, this is our story. And it's filled with pain, it's filled with joy, just like any people group's story.
A trip to the Ohio Amish country is a trip that will leave you inspired and yearning for a life that slows down enough to appreciate the simple yet precious things in life.
And while there's most definitely a stopover at Lehman's, or if you can't go in person, a trip to there via their website, I'd say Jay and his family have learned a few things from their Amish neighbors. He sticks with what he knows, treats people the way they should be treated, and always keeps it simple. When we come back, what do you call a massive barn with a little bit of everything? How about barnucopia?
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal. You know, we often say here on the show that national treasures can be found where you least expect them.
And that's exactly what happened to us when we came here to the plains of northern Illinois.
Egypt has the pyramids, India the Taj Mahal, New York City the Empire State Building.
And in Polo, Illinois, they have barnucopia.
It's a 3-story museum depicting farm life of days gone by, with some unusual twists even we've never seen before, including a silo hotel.
It's located about 40 miles west of Rockford, Illinois, and 80 miles east of Jan's hometown of Moline. It's the brainchild of Gary Bacher, who was already a collector of vintage tractors and was something he and his wife Judy had dreamed of creating for more than a decade.
When your grandpa first started to talk about a place to house his tractors, I'm guessing you never thought it would be anything like this.
No, it started off as a pool barn, like a 60 by 40, something small. We started for a 1-story and then a 2-story. And then they're like, well, if we do 2 stories, we might just put a third story on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, you know.
Why not?
Yeah.
I told the boys I'm going to buy back all my old machinery and trucks so you guys can see how I farmed 70 years, 60 years ago.
Barnucopia is massive, over 20,000 square feet. The first floor is filled with those beautifully restored tractors. But one of the coolest features, a family tractor that is kept under glass, literally.
When guests walk in, they find themselves right on top of a very special 1952 8N Ford.
That Ford in the pit, I started driving when I was 4 years old.
4 years old?
Yeah.
When I walked in and saw the tractor under my feet, under glass, I knew this was no ordinary barn.
As you might imagine, Gary's enthusiasm for tractor collecting overran the allotted space inside the museum, so he had to have another building built out back to hold the rest.
Part of the reason is because the second floor is reserved for only classic cars, and every one of them has a story.
Had my first date in this car. How about that?
You did?
Yeah. I touched her and she jumped out of the car and ran to the house and never talked to me again.
Well, that failed date was meant to be, because Gary was yet to meet the love of his life, and that would be Judy, his future wife.
After dreaming for a decade of creating this museum, Gary got it built, and Judy gave it its name.
She wanted something to pronounce that it's just not a barn. So a barnucopia is a lot of a barn. Well,
Judy also made it come alive. She added period signage, farm tools, and old dairy equipment that she remembered from her childhood.
And the classic cars are displayed in their own drive-in theater. She and Gary loved that.
They also loved ice cream, so guests enjoy treats at a 1950s-style soda fountain.
They've even gone to the trouble of recreating a small section of historic downtown Polo.
Excuse me, I gotta use the shoe store.
Yep, behind the facades, there's the men's room that looks like the old shoe store, and the ladies' room is the dress shop.
The Bakkers' love of rural history shows through even in the building itself. It was built with a centuries-old technique called mortise and tenon.
They drill a hole in the big beams and they drive a peg about that long into the beam and
a wooden peg.
Yeah, wooden pegs.
Barnucopia took 18 months to build, and nearly from the start, it became a destination venue. It's been booked solid with events, from weddings to reunions to baby showers.
When the barn was finished, Judy had just one complaint. There was no silo. So she built one, but for guests, not grain.
she thought, well, I think it'd be pretty cool if people stay in a silo.
The silo's circular stairway goes up to 3 floors. 2 are guest rooms, and the top is a library.
Have you ever heard of a silo stay?
But the most talked about element at Barnucopia, and also Judy's idea,
the enormous cupola with a rotating John Deere 730 from the 1950s.
My wife said if we could put a tractor up in the cupola. I said, if we can make it go around, you can have your tractor up there.
So, with lots of planning, a huge crane, and one of those turntables from a used car lot, Gary made it happen.
People always ooh and ah a little bit when they look up there.
Yeah.
One thing we have not mentioned yet. The entire time Gary and Judy were building Barnucopia, Judy was fighting breast cancer. She passed away in 2015, but not before it opened.
And she was with us 2 years in the barn. So basically she's seen how everything worked and how it was going.
Barnucopia is so much more than a big barn with awesome restored tractors and cars.
It's a bigger than life-size story of a quintessential American farm family.
And it's a story being told and passed down to the younger generations and to all who stop by to see it.
We wanted to be welcomed in a friendly manner, so that's how we welcome our guests, in a friendly manner. So it's the way it should be.
Welcome back to Small Town Big Deal.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Small Town Big Deal. And Jen, was it clear how much I really liked Lehman's?
It was. And now, after being there, I understand why they call it a low-tech superstore. I'm just very excited. I'm also now going to be receiving their catalog.
Yeah, that's a great name for it. And Gary and Judy, did they create the mother of all barns or what?
They did. And you know what? And they're keeping history alive, which is something we love about them. I'm just waiting for you to take one of your vintage tractors and spin it on top of one of your barns.
I'm Rodney Miller.
I think that's a no. I'm Jan Caro.
Join us again next week when once again we celebrate the great stories from across America. Let's do some goat yoga.
Go, Rodney. Go, Rodney.
Okay, Inky.
Oh, he's gonna jump. Oh, look what I have, huh?
Really relaxing. I feel refreshed.